right, so we're just kind of walking around the rim now of Moray. And one of the things that you see is, of course, they grabbed everything from all of the empire, brought it here, started doing the genetic selection. Once they made it to the top, this continued all the way for whatever made it, for whatever they wanted. So once it got to the top, this would then go to the next city. And in that city, all those grains for the year would be at the bottom. And they would slowly, every year, what worked, would go up one layer, another layer, another layer, another layer, until it reached the top of that city for the genetic selection. When that was done, they'd then pull those and they would take it to the next elevation city, the next highest city, and start to be planted all around that area. So by the time I made it to Cusco, the capital, or even the royal palace where we were in Chinchero, all of that significantly higher elevation than this. They continued the genetic experiment. This is just the initial one that initially gets us from the Amazon or from the coast to here to be able to genetically select, mess with the soil, see what makes it, whatever makes it, then gets to live. It goes from this one, remember it goes up to 12 rings. Once it reaches the top of the 12 rings, now you're into this circle over here. But this circle, the bottom of that circle, which we're walking towards now, is the very top ring of that. And so it's slowly going up from there. Once it reaches the top of that one, you're now to this one over here. And so the bottom, the top circle there is equal to the bottom over there, and it slowly goes up. Once it actually hits here, you can't really tell because it's now gone, but there were terraces that went all the way up. In fact, if you go a little higher, you can see where they were, which is really cool. And so again, these would then, once they were in production mode up there, they were acclimatized. At that point, it would go to the next nearest city, wherever that may be, until eventually it made its way higher and higher and higher. And it was for defensive purposes, right? If you can grow your own food up here, you do not need to import food because the mountains are far more defensible. And if you can grow your food up here, you never need to go down. You're a lot lower risk of a blockade. You're a lot lower risk of anything to go wrong because you're producing your own food here, right? They're acclimatizing things over thousands of years, hundreds of years, to basically actually function here.
Here we are in Moray, no? But nobody knows the original name of this place. But in Quechua, Moray means circular area or circular place, no? So before we talk about this place, look around you. This is all the mountains, the Andes range that is starting more than 6,000 miles in South America, starting in Argentina and finishing in Venezuela. When the Incas expand all their territory, and we are talking about 1520s, they expand from like the north side, San Juan de Jujuy in Argentina, all the way up until the south part of Pasto, Colombia. So we compare to the maps that we have nowadays, 6 countries. So in all these countries, they have different kind of altitude levels that we can see here in this book.
Different climates.
Different climates, starting from sea level and passing all the Andes, the snow-capped range, and part of the Amazon. In total, more than 16 different kind of microclimates. In all this big territory, it will be possible sometimes to farming, as the same that you can do it here in this land, or the same that you can do in Lima. So every time they change the water, everything change the temperature, and will be the Incas able to provide food for every single person in the empire. That is one of the reasons why the Incas designed to make a Moray. According to the studies, probably was a agricultural laboratory. Now I want to pass the voice to our archaeologists, local archaeologists here.
It's a pretty amazing site. So the altitude and the climate of the high Andes is not conducive to agriculture. This is a very harsh and unforgiving climate. Almost all the agriculture that was practiced here, even before the conquest, had to be acclimated to this climate. So for example, corn, we talked about corn. This is not the natural habitat for corn. It had to be acclimated. But most of that acclimation was done over thousands of years of Andean civilization, far before the Inca. But the Inca had, really after the Wari, they were the first great empire. And the Wari Empire was vast, but nowhere near as vast as the Inca Empire. It did not encompass so many different climate zones and so many different types of terrain. As a result, different types of plants, fruits, vegetables. What the Inca wanted to do was to be able to bring those agricultural products from across the empire and have the ability to plant them here on a mass scale. But for example, you can't bring fruit trees from the lowlands of the Amazon to the Alto Andes and plant them. It's not going to work. So they built this place as an agricultural laboratory. And what this is basically the concept of selective breeding before Charles Darwin, before, theory of evolution. This works on the same principle. So each terrace actually has a unique biosphere. It has a unique climate and humidity level. And that is achieved through the use of specific types of stone, gravel, soil mix, as well as mulch. We don't know the exact formula to rebuild these terraces, and you'll see that with one of the other circles further. But why the circular shape? Because it would absorb the facing stones would absorb the heat from the sun, and they would radiate it inward. So the further down you go, the warmer it gets and the more humid it gets. The ability to create artificial humidity was actually something that was discovered by a far more ancient civilization called the Tiwanaku on the shores of Lake Titicaca. The ability to recreate humidity here works on the same principle, to the point where the bottom of the circle would represent an Amazonian climate. A climate that is very high in humidity and it's also very warm. So the way the system would work is very simple. You would bring whatever plants that you wanted to plant, and they found seeds from anything from tobacco to passion fruit to mangoes, various types of tropical fruit, coca. So we know they were acclimating those. So you would plant them in the first circle. The ones that would survive, you would move them up one and plant them. The ones that would survive, same thing, all the way up through the various circles until you get to the top. Well, now you're in the climate of the Alto Andes, and that plant has acclimated to this climate. So this was a agricultural engineering laboratory, and a fairly successful one. We know the system works. We just don't know the exact formula of how to make it work.
Can you talk about what is down in what they found inside the bottom as far as the soil conditions down there?
Yeah, so one of the things that the Inca did was they would import soil, because they realized that the soil of the Alto Andes was not conducive to growing certain types of crops. So they would have to import the soil from the other regions of the empire to be able to acclimate those crops. And again, very slowly, they would move less and less, mess with the mixture until that crop was acclimated to the high end.
And as we're walking down, can you kind of tell everybody here what to expect as we get closer and closer?
Yeah,
to the
so
bottom?
we have 3 circles here, and you'll see the 3 circles are actually at different altitudes. One of the things I asked one of our fellow travelers here was, because he had done some reading prior, when we got out, he made the comment that there was nothing to see. I was like, well, why do you think there's nothing to see here? Because the whole thing is sunk. It has to be sunk, because the highest level would be the eye level, because that is the level of the Alto Andes. Now come on, let's walk and we'll do more of this. Not alien landing spot.
All right, so as Omi said, in total there are 3 different circles, 2 different murals. Yeah, the first one is the main one and is the most preserved. In total there are 12 different levels. Along the year we have 2 different restricted weathers here, like the dry season and the rainy seasons. Basically 6 months of rain and 6 months or dry.
Despite
but
what
at
you
this
see,
moment,
we are in the dry season.
with the weather we have now, we can realize that the weather in the mountains is really unpredictable. Normally 6 months of rain, 6 months of dry. During the dry season, the bottom platform, the circular the bottom platform is kind of warm. Why? Because during the day it's sunny, and all the platforms pass the temperature down, and they keep all the temperature warm. In the other hand, in the rainy season is the opposite, because they drain all the water into the bottom's platform,
Making it
making it cold. Yeah,
but
humid.
the most humid.
Yeah,
That's
the most humid. Yeah. So, and also there is another important thing that we are forgetting. That is the wind. And more open area, there is more winding. Closest area, there is no wind there, and the temperature change. So that means every time you just climb one by one of these platforms, the temperature is getting warm or getting cold.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
further down you go, the
Depends on the
hotter
time.
it gets. Yeah.
Exactly. So from here we can see like the platform looks really small, but actually are higher than 5.8 feet. They're higher than that. That's why there are some stairs in the middle that you can use in order to climb to the other platforms. The last time that the public university from Cusco studied here was in 2007, that they discovered there were some pollen or some evidence that they were farming tobacco here, and also they tried to farming coca leaves at this elevation. You have to know the coca leaves were really important for the Incas because basically they chew it every single day for their journeys, just for like energize themselves.
And if you think about it, this was a means of streamlining your economic activity, because products that you would have to import along long and treacherous routes using llama trains, if you could find a way to grow them locally, that would significantly cut down on cost and availability of those products.
Yeah, in this place, we have found evidence from different varieties of corn. We were talking about before that the corn is not original from Peru. It's coming from Mexico. There were some birds that immigrate from Mexico to the Patagonian Chile. They have some resting points on the valley of Cusco, and the Incas were hunting those animals. Probably when they like hunt those birds, they throw and they found some of the beans, or maybe by the poo of the birds, they realized or just found in the corn. They were, according to the levels that the microclimates that they created, they discovered new kind of species. That's why we have more than 80 varieties of corn. But not all the corns grow up at the same elevation. There are some corns that grow up at sea level, corn like grow up at the Andes like level. Like you can see in this photo, this is some of the corns that we have. Some of the black colors only grow up in like temperatures that are completely dry, like the Pacific Ocean, the Peruvian coast. Some of the red ones grow up in the Amazon, and the yellow ones and the white ones grow up in the Andes range. So with this information that the Incas just discovered new varieties of corn here, according to the temperature, like the water, the humidity, they decide at what part of the empire they want to send these seeds in order that they can farming at that elevation, and in that way they can still have food for it. It will be hard for the Inca to bring a lot of food from the capital to those places. Remember, they tried to implant a perfect socialism here, that most of the people have the same kind of food, the same quality of life. The same they made with the potatoes. We were talking about with some of you that now Peru is exporting some potatoes to Africa. Why? Because we have some varieties of potato that needs too much water, and they will be able to just farm in there.
Yeah, there's also an important point to be made. Like, the Inca were masters of three things. They were masters of agriculture, hydrology, and stonemasonry. And you see actually all of that at play here. Peru actually produced more food before the Spanish conquest than it does today. Despite all the modern agricultural techniques, despite all the machinery, it produces significantly less food today than it did before the conquest. And when you drive through some of the lowland valleys around Cusco, you can see that, because you can see the evidence of the ancient terraces on the sides of the hills that are eroded away and no longer in use.
So this was an Incan laboratory, and they'd bring food here, do genetic selection to move it up the various terraces until you hit effectively right.
Bum, bum, ba-da-ba-ba-bum, bum, bum, ba-da-ba-ba-bum.